as you're jumping, and the gun is high. Your dad is rich, and your mama's never been. What you wish, pretty baby.
Great song. That's Summertime by the Zombies, later adapted by Sublime for Summertime. Great song. Both great bands. So welcome back to First Talk with Wilson Ortiz. So today I just wanted to do a short monologue on a first talk of connections. I was talking to my mom today, and she has this like sixth sense about connection. She's the person that can spot, it comes from being a woman, I think, but I think also experiences have helped her be able to understand when she's feeling something that's out of the norm, like a sixth sense. I remember we would always go to the supermarket and she would be able to tell who was stealing. She would just point and go like, that person I think is stealing, as their body language or she would catch them, right? Oh, I just saw them put packs of meat under their shirt. And my mom just had always like an intuition for things like this. Or she would tell me like, oh, I think, that friend, is a little off. And she would be right usually, that relationship might not work, or, she would always have this sixth sense about relationships and connections that I think for men is a little bit more difficult, because we tend to we're more direct, right? So if we don't see it, if we don't experience it ourselves, then it's harder for us to kind of like feel or understand what some of these other feelings are that might be out there that are put out into the world. But I think women are more emotional in that sense and can, I think both men and women can do it, but I think women, have a more natural tendency to emotionality that helps them with these sorts of things. And when it comes to relationships, I also think that women feel more in the relationships. So little things, they can feel when something is off in a relationship, So I was talking to my mom about connection and relationships and things like that today, and so many awesome topics of conversation came up, and well, I wrote some of them down, and let me see if I can find my phone. Hold that thought. Let me go get my phone.
Kiss your phone.
Oh. So I'll just touch on these briefly. And
just give me 1 second. Can you put this one instead?
Yep.
Can you edit this down?
Yeah. So the connections start with you, when how you feel, right? You start with how one thing that my mom left an imprint on me growing up is that all my relationships, friendships, and partners and romantic relationships, they all start with how I relate to people, not the other way around. In other words, you're going to seek a relationship based on how you are relating yourself to the person that you're talking to. And so it starts with you. A good relationship starts with how you relate. So you must be aware of how you relate, so that then you can make the right decisions as to what you're going to talk about, what kind of things you're going to do with that person, and be empathetic and sensitive to how they respond. So I thought that was very insightful, because a lot of people don't start relationships out thinking about how they relate to people. How do I come across to someone? And my mom made another really good point, and she goes like, we are just now, it seems like the millennials seem to be more aware of that, and yet at the same time it's those same millennials that are also having trouble with connection and relationships. And I asked her, why do you think that is? And she said that part of it is the family unit is what dictates how a person is going to be in life, right? How your family raises you, what sort of connection you have with your family, how close you are, how open you are to with your family. Those things ultimately impact how you relate to people. And she says that the family unit has dwindled, become a nuclear family from where it used to be bigger, large, extended families to now a nuclear family, to now, instead of a nuclear family being somewhat close and still having dinner at the dinner table, now what you have is technology raising children, which I found incredibly insightful as well, because I never really thought about it that way. In fact, Generation Z is known as the privileged, like the technologically privileged era, because they've been born into technology. They are now born only knowing a time with technology and computers and the internet. And for millennials and people that are older, connections were made through talking at the dinner table with a beer, by going out, right? And the world today is so perfectly suited for introverted people, because all they have to do is just be at their house in front of a computer, and they make all of their connections through the internet. They can comment on Facebook or on X or Instagram, play video games, stream through Twitch. There's so many platforms now online that allow you to connect with people, that it leaves people wondering, well, do I really want to make a human connection outside of my house? Is it worth me going out? Is it worth me dressing nice? Is it worth me uh, uh, figuring out how I come across to people? Is it worth me, spending money on gas or food or a drink? Is it worth me, stopping a lovely young lady and complimenting her and asking her name? And what does she do? Is it worth all of the? Is there worth or value in that sort of connection? Well, it seems as though as time moves on, there is less and less of that connection being made that way, and more of it online. And so I found that very insightful, because it's allowing me to create a balance in my life where I also find connection online, and I'd much rather communicate through people via email or Instagram or however, through online platforms. Yet I also know that I'm becoming a little bit comfortable with that, a little perhaps too comfortable with that. And so I have to now put myself in an uncomfortable position on purpose to try and seek out balance to make these connections. So based off of wrestling with these ideas of connection, I've come up with a general rule. It's not a rule, it's just something that I'm practicing, something that I believe is going to ultimately help me develop more connection. And it stems probably from historic biblical times. You might know it as the 12 disciples. But instead of the 12 disciples, you find 12 best friends. So if you are in your 30s or 40s, chances are you have a handful of friends, right? You have your childhood friends, you have your work friends. You have your friends from when you did that one trip abroad or the study abroad trip, and so you've kept in touch with maybe a handful of these people throughout your life. And when you were younger, you had a lot more friends, but as you get older, you start, those connections don't stick around as much. And so you end up having less and less friends, right? Or let's call them best friends, people that you can just call or text or maybe not talk to for a while, but you meet up with them and it's like there was no time, that went by. You guys pick up exactly where you left off. Um, but if you can then now in your 30s and 40s or further, find space in your mind to to get yourself in a little bit of an uncomfortable position and separate yourself from how you used to make connections, right? Forget about how, you used to make connections when you were a kid, because that type of personality, that type of person that you were when you were a child or a teenager or a young adult is no longer who you are now. So to find that same type, to use that same personality to find friends now is going to come off as maybe a little bit immature or fake or phony. So that doesn't work. So you have to try and find out who you are first, how you relate to people, and then you can start to make the strides to make these connections. And so again, this general idea of 12 best friends, 12 disciples, right, is a concept that I have come up with, and I think it will be fruitful moving forward, right? And what does it mean to have 12 best friends, or to start to make 12 best friends, or your 12 disciples? It means that in your 30s, 40s, or even 50s, if you can start to generate genuine, true, strong connections with people, then I believe you will have 12 best friends up until the day that you die. And all of your opportunities, all of your best moments in life, all your best laughs, all of it is going to come from these 12 best friends, because from those 12 best friends, they also are going to have 12 best friends. And so from 12, you've now multiplied that by 12, and now you have 144 friends. So you have friends by extension, almost like an extended family. So all of your business opportunities are going to come from that. Your net worth is going to come from that. Your passions are going to come from that. Maybe even the love of your life is going to come from that. Personally, I'm single right now, but I'm not worried about me having a partner. I do want one, obviously. I like being in relationships, and I do want one in the future, but I'm not worried about it. I'm not thinking about it, right? Because I know that if I follow my path of finding 12 best friends, I know my future girlfriend, wife is already on my path, right? If I have 12 best friends, chances are I will meet my future wife through mutual friends. More than likely. That's how it usually happens. And so if I create these 12 best friends, that relationship has already kind of been laid out for me in the future, right? 2 years from now, 4 years from now, 6 years from now, she's there somewhere. And the same goes for business opportunities. Down the road, you will find that one of these friends needs your skills, abilities, and capabilities to do something for them, or for somebody that they know that can generate you money and develop your career further. And how do you establish these connections? How do you make sure that these are your 12 best friends? Well, I've made a series of rules that are still flexible and fluid, and they move around a little bit, but for the most part, it's basic stuff, right? Can I call you on the phone? There's a lot of people that are texters, big time texters. Nothing wrong with that, but I find it a little bit difficult to believe that you would be able to find the love of your life if you only texted with them, you know, if you didn't take the time to talk to them on the phone and set dates to go out and talk about different topics, person, you know, face to face, person to person. So you have to be able to call this person. You need to be able to know if you can trust this person to pick up in your time of need, right? Is that best friend going to be there for you if you call them? Doesn't mean that they have to pick up the phone all the time, obviously, but it does mean that that person would probably know that you're calling for a reason and send you a text back saying, "Hey, I can't talk to you right now, but I will call you in 5 minutes." You know, or, "Hey, I'm at work," or, "Hey, let me call you back when I'm finished here at the doctor's office," whatever the case may be. And that person immediately jumps and calls you back. That is a strong connection that we are losing, that I believe is a good rule of thumb to have if you intend on making a connection with somebody, a friend, long term. As an adult, it's hard to make good friends, right? It seems a little difficult for some people. You can say that you have friends, but are they best friends? Are they people that you can confide in when you have any problems? Are they people that you can trust when you have issues that you need to really talk out with people? These are connections that come harder and harder as you grow older, you know? So to constantly have in the back of your mind, let's try and seek out that connection. Let's try and establish a 12 best friend goal. Even if you end up at 6 or 7, you're still better off, you know? So I picked 12 not because of Jesus Christ and the 12 disciples. I just picked it because it was, in my mind, a hard goal to achieve. Currently, I have one best friend and I have several good friends, and then people that I know, colleagues and acquaintances. But I don't want that. I want my inner circle to be big. I want my inner circle of people. I want 12 good best friends that I can always jump ideas off of. We can bounce ideas off of each other so that I can learn more about how they think about my issue so that I can have a different perspective. That's good for your own mental growth. It's good for your health, mental health. And obviously having good friends is always just good in general for when you need help with something, right? So, let's see. Another good rule of thumb is this person somebody that you can meet in person? Is this somebody that you can make a plan to go somewhere and do something with? Can you just call this person up? "Hey, so and so, let's meet up next Thursday if you're available at this place at that time." And that person, if they are available, they go, "Yes," right then and there, and then they put it on their calendar so that they meet at that place at that time. Why is that important? Well, because what's happening now is that people are very flaky, right? And I blame technology, you know, short attention spans. I don't know what I'm going to be doing next Friday, but I also don't want to make plans for next Friday. I want to have my plans open, even if it's my best friend that's telling me that wants to see me. No, that's not how it works. These connections only work. These bonds are only created if you are purposeful and intentional with furthering that relationship. You have to be very, very, very clear that what you're doing is building a relationship, a strong bond with someone, so that in the future you can count on them to be there on your deathbed. You know, that's how powerful of a connection I'm trying to make with these 12 best friends. And I will admit, I had to challenge my own biases. I had to challenge my own schedule, my own mental issues that I have. I had to deal with a bunch of different things to try to adjust and accommodate this new space of growth because it involves me sacrificing my time and my thoughts and my everything that I do to make room for this person that I'm trying to get to know. And I'm only trying to get to know them because I genuinely like them as a human being, and I'm trying to get something out of them to build that relationship. So trying to get something out of them, meaning like I want to hang out with them to get to know them better, find where our similarities lie, where our differences lie, and then be sensitive to how they are so that I can continue to empathize with them and build that connection over time. That takes time. That takes effort, and it's not enough that you communicate with people through the internet or via text message. It has to be something that's more human, more emotional, that really brings you down to the human level again. And technology just ain't it yet. It just ain't it yet. It's not there. Human connection is something that in the future, I believe, is going to be so much more important and necessary as technology progresses, because as technology progresses, it also disconnects. It's a weird paradox. The more technology we have to connect to people, the more we use it for selfish reasons to not connect with people. It's a weird place to be in, and it's a paradox that I've been dealing with for the last 2 years on how to bridge that gap. And I think that I'm bridging it by having these conversations. Um, uh, so yeah, so the 12 best friends are the goal. How you go about it has to be deliberate and intentional. And we have to figure out ways to empathize with the people around us more in order for those connections to continue to grow. I'll give you a perfect example of how I think millennials are treating situations right now by using one word: ghosting. Ghosting is a term that I heard 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and at the time it didn't mean too much to me, but I have seen it more and more happening in friendships, in job opportunities, and in relationships. And the most recent example is I had a friend of mine who his girlfriend broke up with him via text message. And it was shocking, to say the least. And this person wanted to talk to her after the fact, and they did talk over the phone. But it didn't, she said basically the same thing she said via text message. And there seemed to be no closure, really. And why did that happen? Why did it happen that way? What is going through that person's mind that she thinks it's okay to break up with somebody via text message? Well, some people are watching this thinking like, yeah, that's perfectly reasonable. There's probably a million reasons why she chose to do it that way. But that's the thing. You believe that, but that's, in my opinion, that's something that is actually a connection sever. It by doing those things, you are also disconnecting yourself from your emotions. So you are not choosing to confront your own feelings, makes you uncomfortable, and therefore you'd rather not even have the conversation because of how it's making you feel. Well, the loss really is on her. I mean, depends on your perspective on how you look at it. But in my opinion, the loss is on her because she's not confronting her own feelings. She needs to confront her feelings and then confront them with the person who she has an issue with, and say it as openly and as empathetically as possible so that they can both have closure and both move on. But if we're in this vicious cycle of everybody ghosting each other, not showing up to job opportunities after you've agreed to go, you know, rejecting somebody's thoughts because you don't like the first sentence that they said, or you don't like the words of how they're coming out of people's mouths, then you're not confronting yourself with how you relate to people. So it goes back to how you relate to people. You need to be able to relate to people in order to connect with people. And it seems harder than ever now to be able to do those things. And it'll probably continue to get harder and harder as time goes on. So, how can we make better connections in the future aside from these 12 best friends? Another way is to make sure that you and your family reconnect. In my case, with my family, I noticed that my family started to kind of do their own thing. And it was harder and harder to bring people to, say, Christmas, Thanksgiving, another event, birthday, whatever. It almost became like a chore, like a thing that we do. Instead of, wow, I really love being with my family and continuing to build on that love and that connection with family. So I noticed that that was happening in the last like 10 years, slowly but surely. My relationship with my family was not the best. And my brother has his family, and my mom has, her own things going on. And my grandparents in Puerto Rico have their own thing going on. And my best friend has his own things going on. And I was like, there seems to be a disconnect there with my family and best friends that I don't understand why that's happening. And I started to recognize that it was connection. It was the lack of me trying to bring them in to connect with me. So it all boiled back again to how do I relate to people? So I decided that I was going to rekindle the relationships with my family. I was going to find things. These are the little things that I found out, right? That I can do to better these connections. I found out things that my family members like doing, and then I joined in on those activities with them. I found ways to be intentional about the ways in which I was going to, be around with my family. We set dates to do things that they wanted to do. In the case of my brother, I learned how to play golf so that I can be closer to my brother because he loves playing golf. I don't particularly like it, but I have found over time that I enjoy it more than I used to. And I'm sure that as time goes on, that'll happen more and more, especially because I'm doing it with my brother. And that brings me a lot of joy. Same thing with my mom. I noticed that my mom likes to talk on the phone about life and things like that. So I spend a lot of time now talking to my phone. I talk to my mom probably once a day. And we text often, obviously. And then health became a concern of hers, and I wanted to help her through that journey. So I found ways to exercise with her. And we now talk about health and exercising and stretching. And then my sister-in-law, she's big into animals. She loves animals. She is obsessed with animals, really. So much so that she goes and rescues animals, and she'll keep them until they die. So usually they're, close to dying or something like that. So she has like a hospice care at her house. And I thought that was beautiful. And I wanted to relate more to her. So I ended up getting a cat, which changed my life because of my sister-in-law. my sister-in-law met Bruce, my cat, and she fell in love with him. And we were able to bond over Bruce and animals. And I changed for the better and connected with her more because I took the time to learn how she thought about animals, and I applied that to my life, and it changed me for the better. And now I have a stronger connection with her because of that. So you do that with your friends and you do that with your family, and slowly but surely you'll see that you have the reins to be able to bring people into a healthy space where human connection is possible. And you can start to then multiply that in many, many relationships with more friends. And you become all of a sudden more confident. You want to talk to more people, get to know more people, find out different perspectives from different people. And I'm always seeking that. It's probably why I studied anthropology in school and I graduated with a bachelor's in that, because I love always being in an uncomfortable situation so that I can learn from it. And I can only learn from uncomfortable situations if I have an open mind about the process that I'm about to go into. So learning about people, different perspectives, all of that allows me to always be slightly uncomfortable, but in the best possible human way. A lot of this has to do not just with your conscious mind, but with your unconscious mind. How were you raised? What traumas do you have? So I recognize that there are barriers to connection in some instances, but I highly, highly suggest that you try to find ways to find how it is, first of all, that you relate to people, and try to find the shortcomings in that, address them through whatever means you need to, exercise, therapy, medication, whatever it is, so that then you can start to build upon these goals of connection. And they're going to be so fruitful for you. And I can't wait for you to try them out and find out if you are feeling any better. That would make me feel really good, because it's made me feel really good over time. So for the unconscious part of it, I think that reading books has helped me personally. Even after I finished my bachelor's in 2010, I have continued to learn more about anthropology and psychology and sociology. I even did I started my master's in sociology, never finished it, but I did get a lot out of it. And I'm always learning, and I'm always trying to look for new, for different perspectives that allow me to empathize more. One book that's doing that right now that I'm reading, that I picked up again because I didn't finish it, was this book by Michael Nicholas called The Little Black Book of Decision Making. And it talks about how your unconscious mind is actually running your life. How a lot of what you do starts with your unconscious mind, which is basically just an accumulation of your experiences over time. And those experiences have turned into your biases, the grooves in your brain that you can't change, your health habits, your eating habits, your outlook on life, basically. So that book has been wonderful, even just into the 50 pages that I've read so far. Life-changing, mind-altering, literally. It's like learning how to hack your brain a little bit to try and focus more on how you feel. And instead of reacting to things, you respond to things. Because when you respond to any situation, instead of reacting to it, you end up with different perspectives so that you can come up with different solutions to problems in front of you. So that's a really cool little insight that I've gotten so far from the book. And if you've read it, then awesome. If you haven't read it, then you need to read it. So check it out. It's an old book. It's from 2017, but it's incredibly prescient. and I think you'll really like it. So, um, uh, keep the integrity high in your life. If you say you're going to do something, that was the last point I was going to make. Integrity. Have integrity in your life. That is the cornerstone of trust and relationships. Is can people trust you? Can you, if you say you're going to do something and or be somewhere, can somebody trust you to be there, right? Or are you just going to cancel your plans last minute? Or are you just going to ghost them? Or do you just not care? Those are behaviors that create distrust and sever connections over time. So have integrity and discipline to continue to try and put yourself in uncomfortable positions, to try and seek different perspectives so that you can always ground yourself, figure out how it is that you relate to people, and build stronger connections in the future. That was a first talk. Hope you liked it.